But hosts and panelists. You can ask questions throughout this. Again, we'll get started in just a moment. The room is already filling up. And again, I'll introduce myself. I am Joey Roberts. I'm a marketing director here at Lifesight. I am especially excited for this conversation. Being somebody in marketing, I know what it's like to look at a dashboard that showed a really good ROAS, but then I still wondered, did marketing actually cause this? Like what I was doing, did it actually cause growth? And if you've ever felt that way, you're in exactly the right place because that is what we're going to be going over today in today's session. It's about the major shift happening in marketing measurement. Leading today's conversation is our Chief Product Officer, Rajeev Nair. Rajeev has spent years helping some of the most sophisticated marketing teams solve some of the hardest problems in our industry, which is separating correlation from causation. So brands can invest with confidence and know decisions that they should make for their team. So, Rajeev, welcome. I am excited to dive in and learn from you as well. So, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joey. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'm Rajeev Nair, Chief Product Officer at Lifesight. So in today's webinar, we'll have three parts to it. In the first part, for about 20 minutes or so, I'll take you through a deck explaining what unified marketing measurements is and what it solves for you. In the next part, we will have a live demonstration of what we call the measurement orchestration in Lifesight. And we'll do this in Lifesight's platform. And in the third part of the webinar, we'll take your questions, right? We'll have a Q&A session and we'll do this in the end. But please put your questions in the chat as they occur to you, and we will pick all of them in the end. So with that, let us jump right in and learn about closing the measurement orchestration loop from causal insights to actions. So measurement is a hard problem, and it is worth getting it right. So all the things around accuracy, methodology, all of that matters. At LifeSet, we invest a lot of effort in getting these things right. But accuracy on its own is in the finish line. And this is the core argument that I want to make today. There is a second half to that question, and that half is this question, right? So what is it accurate for, right? It's accurate for what? It's accurate enough for which decision? And this is where the gap sits. Between an insight and an action, there is a layer that we usually leave implicitly, and that layer is the decision layer. And insight does not become an action on its own, right? So something has to convert. So when we say Facebook has an incremental ROAS of say 1.9, that insight will have to be converted to an action, and that conversion is a decision. So once you see the decision as a bridge between insights and action, we will realize that there is no such thing as the right measurement in the abstract. There is only the right measurement for the decision itself. And businesses typically make decisions at three levels. In LifeState, we call this decision altitudes. These are strategic, tactical, and operational decisions. Strategic decisions are your mid to long term media and marketing mix decisions, your marketing plans, your forecasts, and things like that. These decisions are typically slow, but they're high stake decisions. And what you need is an understanding of the structure of your business to make these decisions. And this is where causal models and marketing mix models sit. Then there are tactical ones, which helps you decide whether you should launch a new channel. Are the channels that are currently live or the tactics that are on which you're currently investing are truly working for you? And also, this is where you ask questions around whether you believe the insights that you get from models. And incrementality tests sits in this altitude. And then comes the operational decisions, right? And these are more regular, faster, and granular set of decisions. This involves your daily bid settings, your daily budgets, your creative level decisions, and things like that. And that is what attribution is for. And we'd argue that this attribution should ideally be calibrated by or informed by incrementality results that you have from experiments and market mix models. And we will touch upon more on this as we go along this presentation. And here is the rule that falls out of all of these things I've just mentioned, right? The speed and granularity of your measurement system have to match the altitude of the decision. So there is nothing like what is the best measurement technique, right? So we have to always look at it from the perspective of what is it that you want to do with the insight that comes out of it, and that is where the decision sits. Moving on. So this altitude framing tells you what good looks like, right? And it also emphasizes the need to be decision driven. But based on our discussions with marketing teams across the globe, we have identified that there are a few gaps, essentially five gaps, and these five places where an insight gets stuck on its way to becoming an action. So that's what you see in this slide. The first one is the trust. This is perhaps the most important of the gaps, and the responsibility of your measurement system and all the rigor underneath it is to give you this confidence. It's to give you this trust. Nothing downstream matters until this one is established. Then we have the translation gap. So when a marketer asks for what is working or when they ask for insights, they typically get back some coefficients or they get back some statistical metrics. Ideally, you should have gotten some instructions or a range of expected outcomes from the actions, right? Measurement systems should talk to marketers in their own language. So there's a translation gap that we typically see in how the measurement systems talk to the marketer. Then comes the latency problem. Most of the measurement techniques are slower. They might be technically rigorous, but you don't get the answers in time for you to then base your decisions and your actions on those insights. Then comes the execution part. The decision once the decision is sort of arrived upon, now someone has to sit across say six different platforms, six different ad accounts, and key all of this in by hand, one at a time. So these actioning will happen quite late, or it might happen partially, and in a lot of cases these actions are never taken at all. And the last one is ownership, right? So finally, when someone approves a model, a plan, and some recommendations, that ownership has to be clearly established. So there has to be a process of decision life cycle, which sort of tells you who is owning these decisions and the onus of action is on whom, right? So these gaps are essentially what we see in the industry, which sort of stops measurement insights to moving into action. Now, here is what I want to notice about that list, right? So only the first item, which is the trust part of it, only the first one is a measurement problem in the way we normally use the term. And we have put serious work into it. I'll show that in a while shortly when we do the demo. The other four sit downstream of your measurement system. So no amount of extra model accuracy closes these other four gaps, right? So it needs a separate set of processes, a separate set of mechanisms, so as to address those issues. So how to build this system? Over the next few slides, I want to first take you through what we call the causal engine. This is the measurement layer that everything else in that we discuss on this webinar will sit on. The principle essentially is what you see on the screen now. You can only act on insights if you trust those insights. Everything I show you afterwards, insights like budget recommendations, creative intelligence, and so on, rests on a read you would be willing to bet your budget on. If that read is wrong, automation doesn't rescue you. So I just said this has to be one orchestrated view rather than three separate reads. So these three things make that true, right? So it is causal and orchestrated, three methods that strengthen each other. And when they disagree, this disagreement in itself is a learning, it's not a failure. It has to be based on marginal learnings and not just based on average of say your last 2 years of data. The average return tells you what a channel has done, but marginal insights tells you whether it has any room to grow. And it also should be accountable to the future, right? So over the next few slides, We will look into each of these things, right? So we have causal models, incrementality test, causal attribution, and forecasting. So we will look into each of these things at more detail. So let's start with the modeling side of things. So how can models be causal in itself, right? So think of it as your digital clone of your business. So essentially, a model needs to encode the process that actually generates your outcome. So what generates your demand, and the structure of that data generating process is what should ideally inform your modeling processes. In this example that you see, there is a this is a very basic sample DAG or a causal graph. So here we could see things like seasonality is driving some of your demand generation variables. So you decide to spend more in your top of the funnel during periods where you see seasonal spikes, and these demand generation activities could drive your demand capture spend. It can also support your baseline, and all of these things, including the seasonality, is also a driver of your outcomes, right? So you could have, depending on the size of your business, you could have a data generating process that could get pretty complex. But before we get into the modeling process itself, what we first need to know is how are these variables or your marketing factors sort of driving one another and finally driving the outcome. That structure is the whole point, because the model is built on it, right? So every driver it reports is something you can name, challenge, and defend. What it tells you, say your upper funnel spend mood, demand generation, you can ask how, there will be an answer, right? So for models that are causally informed, it does not just suffice us to sort of fix the coefficients from, say, incrementality test, but we should first have a process in place where the data generating process in itself would inform the structure of the model. Then comes sorry yeah, then comes incrementality tests. So besides the causal structure, models need some anchoring in causal evidence, right? Because when we try to infer some insights from the historical data, a couple of things could happen, right? You could have potentially many different kinds of solutions to that equation, because every model is an equation. You could have potentially many different kinds of solution to that equation, all of which might fit your data really well. So it does, and also there could be a bunch of signal problems. So if you have multi-collinear variables, then the model could struggle to truly sort of separate them or identify which one is causing the true lift. So in these cases, it helps if we could anchor the model with some causal evidence, and incrementality test supplies these reads. And experiments typically do one of these things, right? One of these things. So they prove if a new channel, or help you test a new channel before you truly scale them. It'll help you causally verify the channels that you're currently already investing in. And most importantly, as I was already explaining, it also helps you to calibrate the existing model with these results, thereby making the models more accurate. Then comes our causal attribution. So the way Lifesight thinks about causal attribution is, can we, based on what we have learned so far from models and experiments, can we somehow percolate down these insights and the patterns of saturation and ad stock and things like that that we have learned from say top level? Can we take it down to granular levels and generate incrementality insights at the levels of campaigns, ad sets, and ad. So, the strategic and tactical questions get answered by models and by tests, but most of the decisions your team makes are at a day-to-day level, right? So, for example, when we finally get a read that, say, prospecting is incremental, that specific read, let's say the model says that you have at the current spend level, you have potential to get 3x for every dollar that you invest in meta prospecting. But finally, you'll have to decide where would that additional budget go, right? To which campaigns, to which ad sets, or which creatives should finally be should you finally be investing in. So we have seen the standard practices in the industry is to just take something called as an incrementality multiplier and apply them across your campaign and ad set and ad levels. But what we do at Lifesight is, besides just using the incrementality multiplier, which is essentially a ratio of your incremental ROAS and platform reported ROAS, instead of just doing that, we consume a lot of other platform reported signals as well, right? So, for example, we look at your impression delivery, your spend share, and a bunch of other signals like CTS, etc. And besides doing this, we'll also inherit the marginal incremental ROAS numbers and the ad stock value that we have learned from the tactic or the channel level. So this gives us more context, which could then help us calibrate your platform signals better. And now you have ability to make your budget and bid changes at scale at the speed of performance, but informed by everything that the model and experiments has learned from your business. The next part is the forecasting part. So in a lot of cases, forecasting is seen as a natural extension of market mix model itself. Models explain the past, experiments keep them honest, and attribution takes it down to the campaigns or ad levels. Forecasting is where all of that gets extended forward, right? So forecasting solves for this extrapolation problem, extrapolation in time problem. And at Lifesight, we treat prediction of forecasting as its own class of problem and not just as a side product of measurement systems. So we have something called as an incrementality adjusted forecasting process, whereby everything that we have learned from your past data in terms of ad stock saturation and marginal returns, we use this to adjust a separate set of forecasting algorithms so that we can generate robust forecast for your business, which you could then trust and base your decisions on. So all of this that I've been discussing so far, so it's a lot of things, right? So you've got models, you've got experiments, then there is a process of causal attribution, which is calibrating your attribution signals with all these reads, and there's a planner, which is a very robust forecasting tool, right? But where a unified marketing measurement sort of becomes very relevant is that these different things that you just saw, they are not just different set of numbers that are kept side to side in different dashboards, but rather it works like a measurement orchestration loop. So your marketing mix models that generate hypotheses. These hypotheses are then tested, right? You could pick the most important test that you need to do. So these tests are then executed. So once we close this loop where we have a better model, a more accurate model, we could then use this model to create plan. And these models could also calibrate your causal attribution. And once you have got this system, you have got recommendations which are generated on a day-to-day basis. And you could deploy these recommendations, and this becomes a feedback into your measurement system, right? So with these deployments and from new data, the system is now continuously learning what is working and what is not working. And once this comes back to incrementality system and it refreshes with new data, it is learning better. So, so whatever we have been discussing so far is on the measurement orchestration process. After this comes what we call as the last mile. So the trusted read is there. Now, what happens to it, right? So this is the last mile, and we have built this across 3 support systems. And all of this maps to your decision altitudes as well. So we have a decision support system. This solves the translation gap that I was discussing, right? And our MCP, LifeSite MCP is what primarily solves for this particular gap. So you could integrate to LifeSite MCP. Later, I'll show you how to do that. And you could ask your questions in terms of what is the best performing channels, campaigns, what's the saturation curves, and a bunch of other things, all through the MCP server. And you could interact with this right from your AI stack, right? Could it be Codex or Cloud? You not leave that system. You could talk to LifeSite right from there. And this helps you make decide faster because this now resides not in a different platform, right? It decides within your AI stack where perhaps most of your other work is already happening. And then we have the budget support system. This is where the granular budget and bid recommendations and guided deployment exist. And this is where the money actually moves. And then you have the creative support system, which is powered primarily by creative intelligence. And this is where you make the creative calls, whether to refresh creative, stop creative, move creative, and a bunch of other things, right? Uh, So let's perhaps quickly talk about each of these things. So first is the MCP side. So you could talk to MCP from your other AI stack, as I was explaining, and this makes your entire decision making process faster. And then you have got this deployment process. You don't need to manually key in your budget across different systems. You could orchestrate all of that through Lifesight in one unified way. The recommendations are generated by the causal mechanism underneath. So this is not just AA giving random recommendations. The AA have full measurement context and access to it to generate these recommendations for you. And there are meaningful guardrails, which is informed by your business. And then we have creative intelligence. So the incrementality reads are broken down to creative level. And we also do have something called as creative synergies, where we try to understand which creatives are currently amplifying your channel incrementality and which are cannibalizing. So besides just creative quality scores, which we pull from ad platforms and we normalize. Besides that, we also try to sort of add interaction terms in your model, right? So that's a slightly more technical version of this, and understand if creatives are synergistic to their corresponding channels or tactics. Now, this has been a quick demo. So what I was trying to explain is what is unified marketing measurements, what are the different parts to it. But though it has got different parts, finally it is like one system, right, which is orchestrating all of this for you. Now, I'd like to try to show this in Lifesight platform, and we'll do an end-to-end flow, right? And yeah, let's see how it goes. So here I have the Lifesight platform logged in. So it starts with the data setup. Here we have got a bunch of connectors which are live. Uh, some of them are active, and there are a lot of inactive ones, which are other connectors to which you could tap into, and you could also filter them by their category. So step number one is, of course, the data onboarding part, and after data onboarding, uh, we will have to transform and taxonomize the data. But there's like a one-time setup on how we can make sure that the data is properly onboarded. Now, our final end goal is to go from the data onboarding part to this deploy module, right? So deploy module is where you finally get to see your recommendations. But here we have not done anything. We have just integrated the data. We have not created a plan. We have not approved a plan or anything of that sort. So we don't have any recommendations yet. But hopefully by the end of this demo, you should see some recommendations on what you should do over the next few days, right? So that's what we are trying to get at. And let's also take a look at the attribution dashboard. So here we have attribution dashboard. We are pulling out a few numbers here, but most importantly, we have a warning, right, which says these numbers are just pulled from your ad platforms and they are not calibrated with your incrementality signal. So once we now approve the models or create a plan, that would now sort of calibrate and give some directions to your attribution data and tell you where exactly you should scale up and scale down. So for that purpose, let me first start by the plan creation process. So I've got a plan that is pre-created here for you. So this is a plan that we have created using a omni-channel revenue model. So let me go ahead and approve this plan first, and then take you through and explain what the plans. But before that, perhaps let's look at the models a while, right? So that we understand what an omni-channel model is, right? So whenever we create models, so we spoke about the causal graph and all of that. So these causal graphs inform how we approach the model creation process. But models typically exist at different levels. So the one standard practice is to create geo level models. But besides that, you could create product level models, models across product and geo, models across sales channels. If, for example, you want a model to explain your D2C revenue, and another channel, another model to explain your offline revenue, right? In LifeSite, you could create these hierarchical models. You can create them separately and merge them together, or you could just create them in one shot, right? So here there are many different types of models. There are offline models, which is grouping a few geographies together. There is then your omni-channel revenue model. So this is the one on which our plan is based on, which has got your Amazon, a bunch of offline sales channels, and your D2C revenue split into new customer and repeat customers, right? So depending on the way you want to make your decisions, right? So there could be a case where you just want to optimize for new customer, in which case you could create plans for new customer models. But there could be a case where you want to do it at omni-channel levels, in which case you could create plans for omni-channel level. So let me perhaps show you a model that here I have created for new customer optimization, right? So I'm editing this one, and we have got a plan here which is created for say 3 months. The current set of budget that is going after new customer acquisition is about $6 million, and we are keeping the budget as is. And here essentially what the system is telling us, you could keep the budget without changing it over the next 3 months, and there are some recommendations on what you could potentially get out of this. Right. So it says if you change the marketing mix in this specific ratio, and there are clear-cut recommendations on what your current budget is, what is the recommended budget, and so on and so forth. And there are also recommendations around what are the new predicted incremental revenue from each of this channel. And besides this, it's also doing a forecast over the next 3 months. What is the potential outcome going to be? And it also breaks this down at a monthly level and gives you confidence in level around the forecast. And this again breaks down the full recommendations to weekly pacing recommendation. And this is essentially what would eventually go and inform the causal attribution process. And besides that, you get to see saturation of all your media variables. So where is your current spend level, and where is the recommended spend level? In certain variables, you have to scale it down. For certain variables, you have to scale it up. Beyond this, also, I would like to explain a few things around what all controls we have in place when we create a plan, right? You could optimize it for different KPIs, whether you want to optimize towards a target KPI that you want to achieve X dollars of revenue over, say, 3, 4, 5 months, you could go after that. Or you could perhaps optimize a budget. We could apply business constraints. There are certain preset levels here, right? And besides these preset levels, you could also set manual levels, where if you want to specifically say that there are certain variables that you don't want to scale up, you could apply your specific business context in that case. There's also something called as custom pacing, right? So in these cases where we have got uh, a longer term plan, you can tell the system how do you actually want to split this into a month level splits, right? So custom pacing is another option. This is essentially telling the system that every month honor specific constraints that you have set for that month. And we treat a planner as a forecasting system. So it's not just the media variable that you get to set, you can also set your other control variables. So this is an estimate about what these other control factors would be over the next quarter. But you could override this and set your specific level. If you plan to increase or decrease your price, if you plan to send more email campaigns, you could give that context, and the system would make its prediction accordingly, right? So this way, it's a very flexible planning tool, and it's also intuitive to a very large extent, right? And you could use this all by yourself once the model is ready. Now we had promoted a plan here. Yes. So while we promoted this other plan, so now the model that powers the plan is also getting promoted internally. Now what this should mean is the plan that you have currently promoted, uh, uh, which is uh, which is that omni-channel revenue plan. It is now setting benchmarks for your causal attribution, right? And suddenly you have got recommendations at channel levels, uh, and all the way till ad groups and ad ID level. And these recommendations are essentially what you should be doing over the next 7 days, and this adjusts itself daily. And we could look at a more detailed breakdown. We could click on each of these things, and it will tell you. So this plan, let me show you this plan, right? So this was a 6 month plan, and we are in July 29. The model was built till March. So this plan goes all the way till August. So we are somewhere in the middle of this plan, right? So all these recommendations are taking into account what has been your current pacing like. And you could see your current pacing rate and a bunch of other things here. So there are columns that you could sort of pin and unpin. So it tells you how are you pacing across each of these campaigns. And there are detailed breakdown of these insights across all the weeks that are passed. right? Over the past weeks, how have you been sort of investing in each of these campaigns? And as you stand today, how are you investing, right? And overall, what is the current state? So this gives a very sort of detailed view into where you are today. And this entirely also power your deploy process. So in deployment, we see that this plan, which is powered by your omnichannel model, is now guiding your entire system into achieving a very specific objective of what, $100 million at the same spend level. And we didn't change the spend level. At the same spend level, it is giving you $130 million with a lift. And all your recommendations are now available here. You can filter it out by different system and also act on them. Right? You could choose to pick whatever you want to change. You can change the budget right from the platform itself. You can either go with the recommendation, or you could override with the budget that you have in mind. So you could change the budget, you could change the bid setting, or in certain cases where you just want to stop and start the campaign, you could do that as well, right? So you could make these changes and here, so essentially what we have demonstrated is from a state where we didn't have uh, any insight, right? We just had data integrated and we just had unified data. We were able to execute the whole process of creating a plan, adopting it, and getting this plan to instruct your day-to-day optimization decision, all in a very seamless way. Just one more point that I would like to touch upon is the experiment side of things and the creative side of things. Two things. All right. So let's talk about experiments. Experiment design and deployment is again things that you could automate through the system itself. So here, let me just show you one case where we have got an experiment designed. So there are a few market recommendations for you. So when you want to do a meta scale-up test, you could also see other market recommendations, and there are certain top-ranked ones. And this is the recommendation for this is your treatment market. This is the recommendation of duration. What is the market share? What is the additional spend besides your current spend level that you need to do? And the test is designed in such a way that it could even detect a lift if it's just 1% and things like that. And also, this is the control market, right? Essentially, we have established a similarity between treatment and control market based on how they have been moving together over the last 24 months or 12 months, right? And that similarity you could see here. And here there's a power curve which tells you at what level of spend are we getting, say, above 80% or 100% power. By which means if a true effect exists, then we should recover them. We are likely to truly recover the true effect. So this is a state where the experiment is designed. And there's another case where we have completed an experiment, which is for Pinterest. Yeah, so here, once the experiment is concluded, you'll get all these reads as well, right? So it will tell you what is the incremental revenue lift, what is the incremental ROAS. There's something called as an adjusted incremental ROAS, which is if you choose to have a cooling off period after the conclusion of test, we could sort of incorporate the learning from that period also to this adjusted incremental ROAS. And besides this, it also quantify the credible interval or confidence interval and the statistic at which these results are sort of inferred. There could also be cases where you're testing for multiple KPIs, right? So besides testing for overall revenue, if you also want to test for, say, new customer revenue, you could design an experiment so as to cover multiple KPIs as well. And once these tests are in place, uh, we can calibrate the model. So that again is something we could do right in the platform. There are options where you could click on calibrate, and let's see, click on calibrate and go ahead and enter your calibration details, right? So you can give the time window for which the experiment was run and key in the incrementality results for that, right? And that way, now we are anchoring the model. When we retrain the model, that retrain would also get anchored in the incrementality rate. So this way, your experiment is coming back to the system. And once you do that, the causal attribution read that you saw here, which is currently powered by the model, will then get powered by a mix of model and experiments. So what you saw here is the full loop of how the data is ingested and how we create a plan and how that plan, right, which essentially is your decision. You're finally making a decision on what you want to optimize towards, and your underlying measurement system is sort of powering the decision, and this decision would guide your day-to-day operations. One last point that I want to touch upon is the creative level insight. So there are a couple of things that happens here. So we would pull in all the creative level information from your ad platforms, and we would group them into what are the best performing creatives, what are the fatiguing ones, which creatives are not working as intended, and what are the new ones where we are still not concluded on its efficacy. And besides that, we also do have a process whereby we compute the interaction effect between creative and their respective channels. This is done in the modeling world. It's called as interaction terms. So we take the creative's quality score and include them as interaction terms in the model, and thereby we know which creatives are truly supporting your channels and which are not. And based on this, you get to make certain decisions as well, right? Which creatives you can uh, scale. I mean, you cannot technically scale a creative, but you could decide to continue investing in them, and which creatives you could stop and things like that, right? So these are a part of the full orchestration flow. Now, all of these are, so we have a platform here, but everything that I've showed you today is something that you could tap into right from Claude and Codex directly without leaving those systems, right? So I'll just share one short recording on how Lifesight customers could integrate Lifesight MCP and converse with your measurement context layer right from any AI client. The most important thing is there is a very strong measurement system. So the trust part, right, the main gap that we spoke about, that is sort of addressed in that measurement orchestration loop, and your AI agent can now uh, tap into this context and um, help you sort of make your decisions and move towards action. So let me share this video and
configure Lifesight MCP with Claude, in this case, in under 2 minutes with no code required. First, log into Claude, then navigate to Customize. Click on Connectors, add custom connectors, add the Lifesight MCP connector name and URL, then click Add. Now, log into your Lifesight account, and that's it. You're fully set up. Now your team can ask highly strategic questions like, which channels overperformed on incrementality last week and by how much? Show me iROAS versus platform reported ROAS side by side. Or even draft a board ready summary of last month's iROAS by channel, including methodology notes. Your team is already using AI to make decisions. Lifesight MCP ensures those decisions are backed by trusted measurement intelligence, not guesses. The power of unified marketing measurement, now accessible everywhere you work.
yes. So yeah, so that brings us to the end of the demo. We have seen the need for a measurement orchestration process that truly unifies these different measurement techniques, and I hope I have also sort of established the need to have these different techniques because they are working at different decision altitudes. You cannot make your day-to-day decision only based on MMM, and also you cannot make your strategic decisions based on attribution. You need a mix of all of this. And most importantly, all of these things which are in the realm of science is also now coming to the art of marketing, right? Which is where your creative insights and creative intelligence sit. And we are now trying to bridge that gap as well. Most importantly, this loop of sorts is what is helping you sort of bridge this gap between causal insights and making meaningful actions. Yeah. Joey, do you want to take over? We can perhaps.
Yeah,
go
very
to.
cool information. We have some really awesome questions in the chat, and thank you for your patience. We'll get to the questions in just a second. And Rajiv, really cool. I agree. Stephanie was talking about the in the chat in the questions about the creative. That's very impressive. There's so much control than ever before. And I really like the demo where you were setting the benchmarks and showing that you can take action. So thank you for diving into all of that. And we're offering a measurement audit. So you can see the QR code on here if you want to take out your phone and scan the QR code and be our helper and let us know in the chat for if that is working. And you book your demo and then you'll get your 30-day measurement audit. Super simple. Go ahead and scan that. And while you guys are scanning that and taking a moment to book, we'll go over some questions. Rajiv, I'm going to read the questions for you. You can also, everyone can follow along in the questions and answers. But the first one was a bit ago when we were talking about incrementality. And Cora says incrementality is now offered by nearly everybody, including ad platforms offer it themselves. So how does Lifesight's causal read differ than, let's say, like Meta's platform?
Yeah, so when we think of measurements, the most important thing, I mean, generally speaking, let's forget about marketing measurement, but for you to be able to measure anything, you need to use a consistent measuring scale, right? So the whole point of having a measurement system that is independent of your ad platforms and which is transparent is because you could use same standards of measurement for say TV and Meta, for TikTok and Meta, for Google and Meta, and so on and so forth, for print ads and TikTok, right? So the and this is where market mix models and geo tests are more reliable than conversion lift studies or user ID based A/B tests, right? Because in those cases, for one thing, they are closely linked to the way these ad platforms work. Whereas marketing mix models and geotest works at different levels of abstraction. So we cannot truly, because when we're measuring Meta, we are also going to compare Meta against TikTok, right? So there's the primary need for that measurement is to see. So I mean the incrementality read from a conversion lift study from Meta might come out and say that there's an incrementality of say 2x. But for you to make a decision whether you should double your spend in Meta uh, or should you continue investing in say TV or TikTok, you should be able to compare that 2x against TikTok's incrementality lift, right? So there's always a comparison. The platform lift studies, for one thing, they are extremely closely linked to the way these platforms operate. That's point number one. Point number two, it does not truly solve the problem for the marketer, right? Because you, at the end of the day, you need to know is Meta's 2x greater than TikTok's incrementality, right? So that's the primary need for having a system that lets you generalize and is independent of the operational nuances of these platforms.
Awesome. Very, very helpful. Thank you for answering that one. And I did put the link to book your measurement audit in the chat, so you can go ahead and find it there as well, and also scan the QR code. All right. Our next question is, can platform reported ROAS be trusted for budget decisions? And if not, how wide is the gap and what's the practical way to a defensible number?
Yeah. So the incremental ROAS and platform ROAS are measuring two different things, and the methodologies are different. These numbers will be different. Typically, platform reported numbers are it has got a couple of problems. So one is the bottom of the funnel is typically inflated compared to its true efficiency, and in a lot of cases, the top of the funnel is undercredited as well. That's problem number one. Problem number two is when you have platform reported reads across a lot of different platforms, there is always a duplication problem because the same conversion is taken credit for by multiple platforms. And the gap calculator that you just referred, Joey, I think there we have sort of brought together based on our benchmark data, right, based on all the models and experiments that we have run for all our customers across different geographies and different industries, we have got some insight into what is the typical gap between the platform's inflated ROAS and the true incremental ROAS, and also what could be the potential efficiency gain for the brands in adopting some incrementality reads. So that the gap calculator is perhaps the easiest place to get answer to this question. But otherwise, the standard rule of thumb answer is incrementality reads are typically lower than your platform reported ROAS reads. For top of the funnel, incrementality numbers could be close to, or perhaps in some cases even higher than platform reported numbers. But in bottom of the funnels, what we typically see is platform reported ROAS is way inflated. Yeah, but use the gap calculator and you would get a better read based on your industry and your spend levels and all of that.
Yes, and that is one of our gifts to you today for staying on the webinar is the gap calculator. The link is in the chat. Go ahead and bookmark that. You're going to want to keep that. And then when you do your measurement audit, you can review those results as well with our team. And that's just special for what Rajeev has for you today for joining and learning from all of us. And we're really excited that you've taken this time. So that's kind of our gift to you. All right, moving on to the next question, back to creative. Creative is the biggest lever left and the least measurable. Are we genuinely getting to causal creative measurement, or is scoring the best we will ever do there?
Yeah, we are getting there. So now, for creative level optimization, platform reported signals are still very useful. So when I spoke about the common measurement scale, right? So you could still compare a Facebook campaign with another Facebook campaign based on Facebook reported numbers, right? You could rank them and you could compare them. Where the Facebook reported platform numbers becomes irrelevant is when you need to compare Facebook campaigns with say TikTok campaigns, or if you need to make inter-channel budget decisions. So for creatives, we need very fast signals. We need very granular signals. So the CTRs, the CPMs, and the other engagement scores like is your creative fatigue and things like that, which we could pull directly from the ad platforms, are still very relevant signals as far as creatives are concerned. But what we need to do is we need to be able to normalize them, because there are certain platforms like TikTok which might not generate a lot of clicks, right? Because you're not stopping to click on an ad, you're just scrolling past them, even if they create a lasting impact on you. Whereas a lot of other tactics like a branded search might generate more clicks. So your CTRs, if you just compare CTRs, your TikTok creative might not look that lucrative. So we should have a normalizing mechanism so that we could take the platform reach for creative and then we could normalize them so that we could make a meaningful comparison of which creatives are working. So that's the first thing that Lifesight has solved currently. Second thing is, based on this itself, you could make a lot of decisions, right? You could decide which creative needs to be stopped and which creative should be continued. So these decisions could be informed by these normalized creative quality score. But besides this, another very important thing for you to also do is to decide at which point should you do creative refresh, right? Think of different strategy. And also for you to see if there certain creatives which could be moved to a different tactic. So it's a specific creative which is extremely which has very good creative quality score, but is not complementing or amplifying the current tactic that is part of, could ideally be moved to a different tactic and tested there, right? So for this, we need to know something called as creative synergies. So for in our case, what we have done is we have used the normalized creative score and we have made them a variable in our MMM models itself, so that we could understand if those interaction variables creates a positive net positive effect, which is a synergy, or a net negative effect, which is cannibalization, right? So based on that, we could also make, besides your stop and scale decisions, you could also make your creative refresh and creative move decisions, right? And these are qualitative decisions, right? These are not quantitative decisions, but these are very useful qualitative decisions which can create meaningful lift in your final outcome.
Yeah, and you can make decisions to improve your creative based on the scoring, right?
Yes.
Very, very innovative. We haven't seen anything like this. So impressive because you have so much control to make decisions. Really, really good questions out there. Feel free to put more questions in the chat. We'll stay on for a bit longer, and as long as you have questions. And on the lines of creative, we can explain and go over all of it and even look at your creatives with you and discuss this when you do your measurement audit. I've seen a few people already book. There's some spots left, so we'll keep this QR code open, and I will put the link in the chat again so that it's the first one there. So you can also book your measurement audit and take advantage of that offer there. And then, of course, you have the link saved to the measurement gap calculator, which you can bring those results with you to your audit. Yeah, very cool. Just checking for other questions coming in. Really good questions. And let us know in the chat that this was insightful. I know that I learned a lot. Creative is cutting edge, excited to dive in more there. And I can tell because there's a lot of questions that came in that were really thoughtful. So appreciate the interaction. And Rajeev, thank you so much for sharing everything. This is very cool. The live demo was really impressive, showing plans that you can make decisions on for your business quickly, right? Rajeev, it doesn't take a lot of time to even do this. You did this in seconds in front of us.
Yeah. So once we establish the data layer and first set of models, everything else is like very seamlessly orchestrated, including your model refresh, model calibration, creating plan, approving those plans, and then those plans guiding your day-to-day budget decisions, right? So all of these things are like pretty seamless. The heavy lifting goes into the initial setup, right? Where we pull the data, we transform the data, we taxonomize. All of these things could be done in the platform itself. You taxonomize the data, essentially telling the system that you for your decision purpose, Facebook has to be split into these few tactics, right? So once these things are set up, model creation is a few hours of work, right? You submit all this data and the models are generated within a few hours. But before the model, we have to also have the causal graph, right? So that's one additional step. Once that is done, you have a measurement system which is live for you, right? Guiding you all the way. And it also generates hypothesis for you. It generates hypothesis based on the signal quality, right? When the models struggle to truly separate causal effects for certain variables, it will generate those hypotheses, and you could sort of have a experiment calendar and go on and execute those experiments. And as and when you have a conclusive test, you bring that back to the model, and this way you have got a virtuous loop of sorts, right, where the model is learning more with more data and from experiments.
Yes, very, very good points. Really impressive. And just want to piggyback on that. Our team will build this with you. You don't have to do this on your own. So when you have your measurement audit and talk to our team, they will dive in and customize all of this with you. It's really here to make your job easier and give you insights that you can trust and that you can make decisions and act on. We have one last question coming in. Actually, you can ask more questions, but another question just came in. What is the typical frequency of MMM model refresh that you would recommend?
So we have got two set of processes around the model lifecycle. This is refresh and retrain. So we support weekly refreshes, and in refresh we set a few things constant, right? For example, your ad stock, your causal graph, the saturation that we have learned so far. So these things are held constant, and we pass new data through existing hyperparameter while letting the coefficients adapt, right? This is a refresh process. So we are not so it's not open learning, right? We are not relearning a lot of things. We stick to our current set of learnings, as far as hyperparameters are concerned, and we pass new data through the model. And when we create a model, this refreshes happen on a weekly basis. Retrain typically happens on a quarterly basis, and the need for retrain is when we have experiment results ready for us to now calibrate the model. If we have additional variables, right? So in that, say, 2 to 3 months period, you perhaps have introduced a new channel, new tactic. Now you have enough spent in that tactic that it makes sense to include them in the model, or you have got new test results and you want to calibrate the model. So there are reasons why a retrain is needed. If there are no additional variables, uh, and if there is no major regime change in your business, we don't even need that retrain, right? If the same set of variables, the model can adapt, the model coefficients can adapt to new reality. But on a quarterly basis, we typically retrain the model, right? Now, this quarterly is not a fixed thing, right? So we can retrain a model whenever we want, but in most of the cases, there is no need for a more frequent retrain. So when people ask me about refresh, they mostly confuse between refresh and retrain. But in Lifesight, you have train, refresh, and retrain. So if you want to change your understanding of causal structure and things like that, you have to retrain or perhaps train again, right? So these are the options. So the short answer is refreshes are weekly, and retrains is whenever needed. In 95% of the cases, this is quarterly.
All right. Thank you. Great question. One more just popped up. If I use MCP, the AI will answer everything confidently. If the underlying data is stale or even partial, does anyone find out before it's already in a budget decision?
Yes. So this is the most important question. So we have to clearly separate agentic AI from causal AI, right? So agents, when you ask a question to agent needs to know the answer from your business context. And the causal AI, so everything that we spoke about in the measurement orchestration layer is where the answers sit. And that context layer has the full historical information about what changes you did last week, last month, what are your business constraints, etc. Right? So once that context layer is built, it improves over a period in time. Now, if there are data problems, then your causal AI is what is getting compromised, right? So your agent is not directly talking to the data. So, for example, let's say your Facebook token expired, right? Facebook token has got some expiry window. I can't recollect it. I think 60 days or 90 days. So if you authenticate Facebook into Lifesight, we are pulling data regularly. But after a particular cadence, you have to re-authenticate. We will send you that alert. You can re-authenticate and all of that, right? But say, for example, if you don't do that, then we are not pulling the recent Facebook data, because of which your causal layer, the models are not refreshed on time. And the causal attribution table that you saw, the Facebook spent there is wrong. No, because of this, what is getting compromised is your context layer itself, in which case the agent does not know the answer. So it's very important that we put the entire emphasis on this context layer, which is your measurement systems. So in the platform, we send alerts. We send alerts over Slack, over email, in platform notification. Currently, there is no alert mechanism over MCP. But if you are a Lifesight customer, you are alerted of this data inconsistencies across many other systems like emails, platform notifications, and so on and so forth. So you will definitely know. So when you are talking to Lifesight and when you ask a question about what is the best performing meta campaign over the last 2 weeks, in MCP, it will return a result. But by then, you would have already known that your metadata is inconsistent over Slack or over email or through platform notification. This is where we stand now. But it's an interesting point, interesting, very, very important question, something for us to think about. So when we ask a question, perhaps the agent itself could could surface these alerts back to you, right? Yeah, that's one interesting point there.
Yes, such a great answer, and I feel like we could even do a whole nother webinar on that topic. So, Rajeev, really great information. That was our last question coming in. Appreciate all the questions and interaction. And Rajeev, thank you for sharing such important information for marketing measurement and the shift that is happening today. And really, really impressive stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you for taking time out today and joining us on this webinar. I hope it's been informative and you've learned something from this, hopefully. Yeah, so thank you for joining this.
Yeah. Thank you all, and we'll talk to you all more on your measurement audit. Looking forward to learning more about all of you. And that's it. Thank you. Goodbye.